And hello everybody, wherever you are. So originally I saw this as an opportunity to show you some of our favourite magnetometer results from the Nene Valley. But as I look back at the surveys, it reminded me of methodological issues we were faced with, particularly at one site, in terms of how to actually present the data. So I thought it might be worthwhile just having a look at that challenge and what we did in that situation. So really it's just one example of how we presented some results from a very complex site. I was hoping that was going to move on.
I think if you click on your actual, there you go, yeah.
Okay. So these are three sites we're going to look at. This is Peterborough just to the east, the River Nene meandering around here, the A1 down in the southeast there. So the first site is a country park, Ferry Meadows Country Park, subject to a degree of gravel extraction in the 60s when much of Peterborough was being built. Another site is Normangate Field. This has always been believed as part of the suburbs to Dura Brevard, which is a small Roman town just to the south here. So these surveys were all taken independently. Actually, they were for slightly different clients for slightly different purposes, and it's a bit of a coincidence, really, that we got these contracts so close together, and they form a really good research resource. So this is just a quick slide just to show the Iron Age and Roman features in the area. This is the country park we'll look at first, and the Lynch Farm excavations that were undertaken prior to gravel extraction. You can see perhaps there are 4 or 5 villas on this shot. There are 2 Roman forts, Roman town. It's a very busy area. As I say, this is just the Iron Age and Roman sites. This is all based on aerial photographs from the 60s. So Ferry Meadows then, the area in pink is the scheduled area, and the red area is our actual survey. So this was undertaken in 2016 for pre-develop archaeology, run by Dr. Stephen Upex, who's also a fellow at Cambridge. The main aim of this survey was to inform a management plan for the park, possibly with a view to revising the extent of the scheduled area, which I'll touch on again shortly. So this is the census cart system we used. I think we're all fairly familiar with these nowadays, but it's perfectly suited to this big open areas. So this was the magnetometer data. There's no palette bar here, I'm afraid, but the darker anomalies are the positive anomalies. So essentially what we're looking at here are ditches and pits. I won't go into the detail of a lot of these features, but there's a group of round barrows believed to be Bronze Age across the site. You can see one there that's been cut by this large area of gravel extraction here. But essentially we've got this subrectangular arrangement of enclosures adjacent to a trackway here, bigger enclosures here. We've got a big Iron Age boundary ditch system to the south, which appears to sort of cut off this big meander. We've got some pit alignments and another big area of gravel extraction here. So normally what we would do after a survey, we would present a sort of color-coded geophysical interpretation plan, assigning different colors to positive, negative, dipolar anomalies and so on. And then we would present an archaeological interpretation, which is shown here. So although there are an awful lot of features here and several phases of activity, it was actually quite straightforward just to present these in our usual manner. These are all pretty much Iron Age and Roman features, apart from the barrows. I'll move quickly on as we're short of time. This is Normangate Field, 2015. This was again undertaken for Nene Park Trust, actually, slightly different purpose. The site was on the Monuments at Risk Register, and again this was to inform a management plan. So the blue area is the scheduled area, the red area is our survey area. So this one covered about 46 hectares, I think, a little bit bigger than the previous survey. This is Ermine Street running through here. Lots of other roads. I think this is King Street. There's another road off to a villa site down here. Roads heading off to the northeast. And all these roads convene here because we have a river crossing just to the south. This is where Ermine Street crosses the River Nene. So again, we've got a higher density of anomalies here, and it's starting to get a bit difficult to actually present these an interpretation, I would say. So again, this is our archaeological interpretation. Would have been clearer if I'd left off all those land drains, but hopefully you can see this increasing concentration of anomalies and features makes it a bit more difficult to present. The anomalies are particularly dense along the roads, as you might expect, perhaps with a greater density of stone-founded buildings along Ermine Street, which you may be able to see as these grey outlines, and perhaps a greater concentration of what we've interpreted as pottery kilns, more industrial work to the east of the site. Again, there are 3 or 4 phases at least represented here, and I think we just about got away with our usual way of presenting the interpretation. Moving on to the third site then, this is Dura Brevard, a small Roman town here. This sits within a much larger scheduled area. It's about 140 hectares there. Again, Ermine Street is running through the middle of the town. Normangate Field is the site we looked at just up here, with all the roads converging on this river crossing. This slide is based on crop mark features, again from the 60s, which show incredible detail in the town here. I've not actually seen the aerial photographs that this interpretation was derived from, but the slide really is partly to show that it sits in an incredibly rich landscape. These are henge-like features, and there's possibly one within the town actually. This is still a bit enigmatic, we're not sure exactly what this feature is. But again, there are lots of round barrows, large Neolithic sites, as well as the Roman and Iron Age features. So in 2017, Chris Lockyer supervised some trial surveys at the site. This is the outline, this is the town wall, if you like, around here, and the A1 on the south side. So Chris Lockyer and his Community Archaeology Geophysics Group and Nene Valley Archaeological Trust, they undertook trial magnetometer surveys, really good results here, very promising. They also did earth resistance surveys and GPR surveys, and all 3 techniques proved very useful results. And this encouraged the Archaeological Trust to seek funding for a bigger survey. So the following year we were invited, we tendered and got the contract to go back down and do this survey inside the fort, inside the small town. So this is about 23 hectares. I won't go into all the detail because we're short of time. I will point out a few issues. And I'll just say while we're here actually that Stephen Epex was again involved in commissioning this survey, along with Geoffrey Donnell, some of you may know as a Roman pottery specialist and a heavily involved member of Nene Valley Archaeological Trust. Geoffrey came to visit us each day. We were on site for 3 days. Geoffrey came to visit us, brought cakes and so on. But as a young man in 1958, Geoffrey had actually helped Martin Aitken undertake the first ever archaeological proton magnetometer survey, and it was on this site. So here we were, almost exactly 60 years later, showing Geoffrey the results of our survey in the back of our van, and it was quite an emotional moment. Anyway, I digress. So this is Ermine Street, of course, running through the middle. Lots of other roads evident in the survey as the negative anomalies. One of the first things you might notice is that it's very irregular in plan. There are also a lot of buildings, including two particularly large buildings in here. We picked up the remains of the wall around various parts of the site, including a few buttresses, two external ditches. The town wall is actually staggered at some of these gates, and it's been suggested that the gates here are actually perpendicular to the wall. So you've got a sort of L-shaped approach, and appears to be the case on the southwest side as well. But the main reason for showing this is to highlight the problem we had of how do we present the interpretation of this. There's very little what we might call natural background, if you like. Almost everything might be considered anomalous, if you know what I mean. So it's very difficult, and we felt that any attempt at defining and color coding all of these anomalies would still provide an oversimplistic interpretation, and would actually be less informative than the grayscale itself. So one of the things we tried was we managed to put the data into GeoPlot, and then used a palette bar to assign the color red to areas of strongly enhanced magnetism, which we considered might be burnt or fired materials. So that was the first stage in interpretation, if you like. The next stage, we color coded what we considered to be soil field features and also largely stone and gravel features. So it's essentially the roads, the wall footings, various ditches, and so forth. And then we presented both of those layers of interpretations like that on top of each other. And we felt this was quite a useful way to show the interpretation. We deliberately kept the grayscale underneath as well to add another layer of information. But we found this quite challenging at the time. We only had 2 or 3 weeks to produce the report, as you can imagine, and that was just one solution that we came up with. I would love to tell you more about these sites and all the features, but we don't have time, and that wasn't really the purpose of this talk. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Wherever you are, give them a clap. Thank you very much, Duncan, for your contribution. Really awesome data with a nice kind of the personal tale behind it. Could I open the floor to questions, please? Please raise your hand if you'd like to ask anything. Yes, Michael.
Hi, Duncan. I would like to ask you, because these are, of course, astonishing results. What type of soil do you have there, since this is the object of my interest?
What type of what, sorry?
Of soil.
These are all river gravels. So we're very close to the River Nene. It's all river gravels, just overlain with a fairly shallow soil.
Gravels, so that's interesting for me. Thank you.
I do have a question, Duncan, and that was that obviously in these really complex data sets, then it's somewhere where potentially something like machine learning can help with classification. Has there been any move towards thinking about a regime like that?
I'm aware that other people have done in the past, and they would be better placed to answer that. I think certainly people have tried doing it. I think. We've actually started doing our interpretation slightly differently now, more GIS based, but
Okay.
nothing as elaborate as the machine learning.